What's going on, everyone? It's another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Thanks for joining us on TV Delmarva, channel 14.1. As always, get social with us. Instagram, Twitter, at Rich Q on Q, the YouTube channel growing exponentially because you guys have been ridiculously supportive of it, at Rich Q on Q. And we got a half an hour to play with on this good day. So hope everyone had a good sports week, and we'll lead right into the weekend, obviously. A couple of things. So March Madness underway, and we threw out some of our thoughts and brackets on Twitter at Rich Q on Q, hashtag BYP Back Your Play. We got a lot of stuff going on with the NFL. We had a major mess if you were a New York fan of the Metropolitans, the Mets. Edwin Diaz looks like he blew out his knee. World Baseball Classic. I mean, oh my goodness. And then you've got, if you're a Jet fan, then you have the news that finally broke and came down on Wednesday when Aaron Rodgers did his weekly spot on Pat McAfee's show. Unbelievable setting, right? You had about 500,000 viewers to that show. And, you know, it wasn't a shock that Aaron Rodgers came out and said that he was going to continue playing, and his belief was he would like to continue. The anticipation is he wants to continue with the Jets. But here's the rub. So just thinking about this as the dust has kind of settled over the last 24 to 48 hours since Rodgers made his spot and his appearance on McAfee, he basically called Murphy out. He basically called the Packers franchise, how they do business, out. And I think that might come back and bite him in the butt. Now, you got to remember a couple of things here. It's not like the Packers are in a rush to make this trade, quote, official, because they want to get back certain assets. So whether that's a first-round draft pick, multiple first-round draft picks, maybe even more, I think the fact that Aaron Rodgers came out and said, look, I know my time is done. I understand that Jordan Love's a heck of a player. He'll be a great leader, franchise player. But the fact that he kept kind of tweaking and driving home the point to the franchise that he felt they didn't do a good service to him instead of disservice. He's got to remember a couple of things. This is kind of how it played out with Brett Favre, right? Because Brett Favre was wavering back and forth. Am I going to retire? Am I going to play? Am I going to retire? Am I going to play? Now, he didn't take it to the extreme of Aaron Rodgers. Let me go in a deep hole, dark hole, and think about it and meditate on it and come out with clarity. But I found it interesting that Rodgers said when he was doing his retreat, 90% retired, 10% wanted to play. I'm wondering, and again, maybe it's just me, the cynic in me. I'm wondering if Aaron Rodgers, once he came out and he turned on one of these, he turned on his cell phone and he saw the litany of messages that he decided, you know, the ego is still there. The ego is such a great equalizer in all of sport and in life, really. There's no way, there's not a chance in heck that I'm going to go out this way. I still have a couple bullets left in the chamber. I still have a little bit on that fastball, and I'm going to stick it back to Green Bay. But by doing that, you really think about it, he now has given the organization more ammunition where they can drag this out. They're in no rush. And this is probably why it's making the Jet fan absolutely batty and in hysterics, because they're wondering what the heck's going on. Why is this transition not done? Why are we not traded for this guy? Why is he not wearing gangrene? Why is he not trying to take Joe Willie Namath's jersey number 12 and the like? So listen, Aaron Rodgers got what he wanted. The theatrics, the spotlight, the stage, the drama. I mean, the Academy Awards were last weekend. You know, give Aaron Rodgers an Oscar, will you? Because this guy knows exactly what to say. I found it hilarious that he turned around and he called out a lot of the media, you know, i.e. Adam Schefter, where he basically said, you know, lose my number. Hey, good for him. Because I guess his gripe was the conflicting reports about him wanting said pieces in place. And I don't know. Do you guys honestly believe for 1 minute that Alan Lazard is going to sign a contract with the Jets to catch balls from Zach Wilson? Come on now. Let's not be foolish. So I do think there is a semblance of truth to that. Maybe it's a little long-winded, but I still think that this move is going to backfire on the Jets. And it's not so much that Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback, but that offense, right, in Green Bay was predicated on run the football. and then open it up a little bit to wide receivers that he had to learn to trust. You're not going to have that margin of error with the New York Jets with Breece Hall, who's coming off a major injury and surgery. It's going to take about a year for him to get fully healthy. So you don't know what you're going to do as far as the ground game in that regard. The other thing is I don't trust Robert Saleh. I just don't. And I don't trust the play calling. And I think you might have to cater the offense around Aaron Rodgers. Lazard's a nice player. The Jets have some weapons. We know that. Their defense will win them games, but if they start off 1-5, 2-4, and they get waxed by Buffalo 35-7, and Rodgers is 18 for 36 and $169 and two interceptions, the chirping's going to start. The chirping's going to start big time. So I think you're putting all your eggs in one Aaron Rodgers basket, and you're banking for 1 year, one run in the Super Bowl. Anything less would be a grave disappointment. Is it a guarantee that if this trade goes down, it's officially done in another couple of weeks or a month, post-June or after, that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are going to be an instant contender in the AFC, let alone the AFC East? I mean, you still got to get through Buffalo. AFC still got to get through Cincinnati, albeit they're losing some pieces and they have to pay Joe Burrow. Still got to get through Kansas City. You know, there are other teams on the rise that are not going to go away, that are going to be much better. Baltimore, as we know, still has Lamar Jackson. Jacksonville is kind of a team on the rise. So there's no guarantee that making this move for Aaron Rodgers gets you into the AFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl. But I get it. The window, it's closing. You want to take a shot here. You know you got this guy for a year, maybe two at best. You better make the most of this situation, because this, again, the way it's dragging out, it has that Favrean kind of taste and smell to it where, you know, Favre forced his hands. The Jets happen to be a willing dance partner. He has to, 4 or 5 touchdowns thrown against Arizona. They're 3-3. Then they reel off 5 in a row. They beat Tennessee. They're 8-3. Everyone's saying, hey, look at the odds. They've dropped. Here you go. You know, 20-1, 16-1, 12-1 to win it all. And then they didn't even make the playoffs. Now the Jets odds now, think about it, to win the Super Bowl plus 1,600. So they have actually gave you a little juice if you're a betting man. But that being said, I still believe this is a buyer beware. I still would have tried to go after Lamar Jackson. And again, there's no guarantee that Green Bay is going to be this willing dance partner right off the bat. We know they want to move on from Aaron Rodgers. We know they want to hand the reins down to Jordan Love, but what if they just turn around and say, the heck with this guy? We don't need him taking shots out the door. Now, granted, some of the organization took some shots at Rodgers too. And Rodgers is very thin-skinned. He can sit there and tell you he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He does. He definitely does. So they can turn around and drag this out and say, we're not going to tap dance, kowtow. We're not going to dance for this guy. We're not going to give him what he wants right off the bat. We're going to milk the Jets for more equity, i.e. players and or draft picks. So it was big news, no doubt. I still think the 24 to 48 hours, the NFL free agency period was absolutely crazy. I mean, you had the Giants bring in a linebacker, nice move. Also a defensive tackle. They're going to fix the offensive line. They essentially milked and fleeced the Raiders for Darren Waller, a tight end who, look, when he's healthy, he's one of the best in the league. It's a big if, right? You finally release Kenny Golladay, you tag Saquon, you pay Daniel Jones, you bring back Shepard. You have a couple of marginal moves at the wide receiver spot. They're not going to spend $20 million a year on Odell Beckham. Just stop it, Giant fans, with that nonsense, please. And then you have the Eagles, where let's cut Slay. Wait a second, miscommunication. Now we'll figure out a way to keep Slay. Hargrave signs that big contract with San Francisco. Look, I don't have a problem with that contract. He's not worth it, but he went out and he got the bag, so there's a loss. They'll bring back Kelsey. You're bringing back Fletcher Cox. You jettison Miles Sanders. He goes signs a deal with Carolina, so that era has ended. And then you turn around and you get the kid Penny out of Seattle, who's a really good running back. So, you know, yes, the Philadelphia Eagles have lost some players, but they're still kind of recouping and they're regrouping. The Giants are still not on the same level as the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Dallas looks like they're going to cut Elliott. Washington, Washington turns around. I think they made a nice signing with Jacoby Brissett. That was one of the quarterbacks out there that I said a team should take a flyer on him. Tampa Bay turns around. They sign Baker Mayfield. The Colts cut Matt Ryan, but he still gets paid, right? Heineke signs with a new team. Sam Darnold is now in San Francisco with Jimmy G. So I'm sorry, in San Francisco, and Jimmy G's in with the Raiders. So I mean, look, man, it's just crazy what's going on in the NFL right now with these contracts, with the free agent signing period. We haven't even touched on the draft, which is right around the corner. But I think it was waiting for that other shoe to drop, and that other shoe was Aaron Rodgers. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? Will he come out of the hole, want to play? Is he going to retire? Does he want to go back to Green Bay? And by all accounts, he realized and he accepts the fact that his time is up in Green Bay. So he looks at it and says, I did everything that I possibly can do with the Green Bay Packers. And it's really interesting because between Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers in 25 to 30 plus years, right, of two all-time great quarterbacks, they won 2 Super Bowls, which is ludicrous when you think about it. With all the talent that they had, as a Giant fan, I'm happy that you finally get Rodgers out of the NFC, out of the conference, right? But I've just maintained this. Why would you want to go to the AFC? You can beat up on the Bears. You own Minnesota. You got to worry about the Lions. You know for a fact you're going to turn around and guess what? You will, without a doubt, have an opportunity to win that division. Now, all of a sudden, you go to the AFC East, you still got to get through New England. You got to get through Buffalo. You got to get through Miami. And if you make it past those teams and get a playoff spot, then you have to go through the others that I mentioned, i.e. Kansas City. So it's a calculated risk and move by the Jets, putting all their eggs in that one Rodgers basket. It's Super Bowl or bust, really, for the Jets, and a lot of pressures on Robert Saleh and that organization as well. And I just found it interesting, too, how Rodgers was like, no, I didn't have this wish list of players. Well, you spoke highly of Lazard, and then the Jets go out and they sign Alan Lazard. So be that as it may, it's just been a crazy last couple of weeks in the NFL. I think it's only going to get more crazier with the draft right around the corner. This is where we're at with the market and quarterbacks, right? Because the quarterback position in the NFL is the most key position in all of sports. I think we can all agree to that because the quarterbacks are under center. They touch the ball the most. They're the leaders. They're the face of the franchise. Look, man, if you're the Jets, you know you're going to hold on to Zach Wilson just in case Rodgers can't go a full season. And you've got Zach Wilson backing him up. Hopefully he can learn, right? Because you don't want to give up on that draft pick. They allowed Mike White to sign with Miami and back up Tua as insurance. It's all going to be on Rodgers now, right? The spotlight, New York, having to deal with the media, having to deal with sports talk radio there. It's all going to be on him, and he's got to back his play, so to speak. All right, halfway home, this edition of BYP with Q. I'm your host, Rich Quinones, as always, at Rich Q on Q, Twitter, Instagram. We're coming at you live from our good friends in their home, in their house, TV Delmarva, channel 14.1. We'll take a quick time out. When we come back on the other side, we'll dive into a little NBA. We'll also get into this Edwin Diaz mess with the New York Mets. I mean, the World Baseball Classic, the guy goes down, an apparent knee injury, might be lost for the season. Horrible if you're a Met fan. I mean, sound the trumpet, no pun intended, for Los Mets and Mr. Diaz. So we'll talk about that as well on the other side. Keep it locked in to another edition of BYP. We'll talk to you on the other side.